episode of Three Deep South. It's a college football podcast brought to you from the great state of Arkansas. Today we are going to go over the SEC. We're going to give our official conference predictions. We might give teams that we think are going to maybe disappoint. At the end of our conference predictions, maybe we'll talk about who we think is going to be the most disappointing team in the conference. Um, and then after that, we're going to kind of outlook the Big Ten a little bit next week, and then we'll be right into college football. So whenever we do get into college football, we are going to start doing a Sunday morning show. I think me and Justin kind of talked about it. We're going to do like an 8 o'clock, probably 8:30 in that range. That will be our Sunday reaction show. We're going to react to the week that happened. Um, it's going to be a little weird week one because you have those Sunday night games. So we might just do little TikToks or something for those Sunday night games, those reactions. And then we talked about doing it, still doing the Thursday show, and that'll be our official prediction show where we kind of talk about what we think is going to happen in the upcoming week. I think what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to keep up with our picks, kind of like monitor who we picked and how each of us are doing with our picks. Well, let's kind of get into it. I think the SEC is going to be a conference this year that is kind of similar to how it was last year. I think your known commodities are very minimum in this conference, especially at the quarterback position. And I think the known commodities that you do have aren't what everyone's kind of cracking them up to be. Obviously, we're talking about Garrett Nussmeier. Justin, what do you kind of think about, before we get into our full predictions, what do you kind of think about what what Garrett Nussmeier could be versus what he has shown us?
Yeah, so I'm definitely like I kind of want to give a little introduction too for just something that I was thinking about. Because I wouldn't say that neither me or you are like we're tech savvy enough to go live on YouTube and like cut up some films and stuff, but like we're not super tech savvy. I would say. I mean, we're tech savvy enough, but I've talked to a few of my friends, and we want y'all to know, like, however many people are watching us live, if you have something that you want to comment, then comment it, and we're definitely going to get to it. Or if you notice something, like if Mason's, kind of edging out a little bit or kind of getting like pixelated or not looking clear, I'm the same way. Like, let us know in the comment because we don't really like Mason might be able to see it because he's got YouTube pulled up, but like I can't. So like, kind of our show is going to be able to kind of go the way that y'all want it to go if you're commenting. Now, obviously, if we're talking about the SEC or the Big Ten or whatever, like especially in the next 2 weeks, don't bring up Oregon State. Like, I don't know. We're not going to have much information to give you because we don't have much pulled up on them. The whole thing we're on, like me and Mason probably know college football more than a lot of people, but we're not some encyclopedia about just college football. I like to think I am, but I wouldn't say that we are.
Reality is we have real jobs,
exactly.
So we don't have time to
exactly.
be, on top of everything.
Yeah. So, just kind of leave us comments. We don't want y'all to ever feel like you can't comment something. Now, obviously, if it's like a statement, we're not going to like comment on it. But if you ask a question, we're definitely down to answer the question. With all that being said, to get in the show, I don't know, man. Like, I'm really weird on Garrett Nussmeier. I feel like he's a lot like the best comparison I could give it to, and I just think it's so hard to compare him to a previous like college quarterback because you get them for such short periods of time that you can't be like, oh, it's like this. The best way I can compare Garrett Nussmeier to is like a lot of people watch NFL, but like a Kirk Cousins used to be, or kind of still is. Like, he's gonna put up yards, he's gonna put up touchdowns. At the end of the season, you're gonna be like, holy crap, Garrett Nussmeier had like 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, and you're like, but he had 15 interceptions, and you're like, yeah, but those interceptions, they weren't like, that's a 15. They weren't bad interceptions, or he didn't have a ton of interceptions. But you go and look at the interceptions that he threw, and they had big consequences on the games that they were in. And like, here's my thing, because a lot of people are high on LSU. And they're like, oh, they're returning a lot. They're bringing a lot back. Like they're going to be a lot better. They're getting Perkins back and this and that and whoop do this and whoop do that. But like, you know where LSU finished in the end of the season at the end of the season rankings wise? Like if you just had to give off the top of your head, like do you think they finished in the top 15?
I would say they probably finished 20th, 19th.
Yeah, they weren't even in the top 25.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
At the end of the season, they weren't in the top 25, and they won their bowl game. So what I'm getting at is like, yes, they're returning a lot, but like, you still have the same coach. I think they brought in like a different defensive coordinator last year, so this would be a second year. So like, but really, it's the same team besides like certain things here and certain things there. So it's like, yes, you're returning a lot, but like, is Garrett Nussmeier enough to like build you over that hump like Jaden Daniels was?
Well, and I think the big thing with Nussmeier is you did see the highs of Garrett
Yeah.
Nussmeier last year at points, but you also saw like lows in games that LSU really needed their quarterback to, kind of show up and be the leader of that offense. And I'm just going to read some stats off here. In games that they lost, his touchdown to interception ratio was I had it. I'm just going to do the math real quick. It was 2, 4, 5. He had 5 touchdowns and 6 interceptions.
Yeah.
Or 6 interceptions and 6 touchdowns. He only threw 1 touchdown against Florida.
Yeah.
So it's like a thing of like you didn't get a quarterback that was really like I don't know, like in the biggest moments he didn't show up. Like he looked good against Arkansas. He looked good against Ole Miss in the second half, but like parts of that Ole Miss game they almost lost because of Garrett Nussmeier's like his lack of explosive playmaking and his turnover problem. And so all of this hype about Garrett Nussmeier, it almost makes me feel like I didn't like me and ESPN or me and whoever aren't watching the same quarterback.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching a guy that at times he did look good, but it also at times he kind of looked bad. And who he reminded me of was like Matt Corral, like at Ole Miss, because Matt Corral would do the same thing, and then Matt Corral would play Alabama and throw 3 picks, and they would score 17 points and lose by 30. So it's just one of those things that like he's going to have to prove that he can win those big games and not be turnover prone.
He's a lot like, production-wise, not so much, but like Drew Aller kind of has had the same thing over his time at Penn State. We'll talk about him next week, but like, and here's my next question for like LSU, because I know we have LSU fans that watch. Like, Mason, when's the last time that you look back and you're like, holy crap, LSU was really good that year, and they didn't have a generational great quarterback?
I don't know. It's been a long time. It's been a real long time.
It's a long time. Like, you had Jaden Daniels and you had Joe Burrow, and like, I know that like generational quarterbacks, you can't typically take that away from them, but like your Alabamas have been good without generational quarterbacks. I would say since 2019, I don't think there's a school that's anywhere close that could match up with the 1-2 punch where they had Joe Burrow in 2018 and 2019, and then they had Jaden Daniels in what season was that? 2023.
22 and
like
23.
I don't know a school that's out there that you could say, okay, I would put up, like for example, I'm just saying Ohio State. I don't think they're anywhere close either. Like I can't put up Justin Fields and CJ Stroud and be like, well, they're comparable to, Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels. There's no school out there anywhere in the country. I guess you could say something about the Oklahoma teams like back in the day, but like even those quarterbacks were not putting up the numbers like those 2 quarterbacks were. And there's teams out there that I would say have done more with less than LSU has.
Well, and that's a Brian Kelly special. Brian Kelly has been the best at doing nothing with a good football team.
But even before Brian Kelly, like even Ed Orgeron and Les Miles and like all those like coaches, like yes, Les Miles did win some, but how many times did you go into seasons and you're like, holy crap, dude, LSU is loaded. And like that's coming from even guys that you didn't specifically really know, like 5 stars and 4 stars, because LSU as a state, like Louisiana as a state, is right in the middle of the Southeastern Conference, like corridor of recruiting. And Louisiana has so much talent down there, but they kind of like it's like I said, they do less with more talent than a lot of teams in the country do. I feel like.
Well, let's kind of get into who we think is going to win the conference. Obviously, I don't think LSU's win the conference. So
No,
let's kind of get down the line here. I have Georgia winning the conference. I think they had a down year last year in a sense. They could not run the ball. They could not defend the run. I thought Carson Beck was suspect at best. He did have a decent statistical year, but if you watch the games they lost, which was just the one, I think, to Alabama in the regular season, he just threw a bunch of picks, didn't look very impressive, and it was kind of the same story all year. Like he just put them in a lot of trouble. But the reason why I'm high on Georgia again is because I think that's a team that, even though Carson Beck was, to me, he regressed. With him, they did win the SEC championship. He got hurt at the end of that game, and then they were in that Notre Dame game in the playoff. And I think with a healthy starting quarterback, they probably do beat Notre Dame, and we get probably a more competitive national championship. I know Notre Dame made that game close at the end, but it was kind of a thrashing the entire time. Their receivers also weren't very good last year. They dropped a lot of passes, and they just could not move the ball the way Georgia normally did. Of course, this was the first year with that Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. They lost a lot of pieces on defense last year. I think Kirby Smart's going to retool this offensive line and their defense, and I think you're going to see a vintage Georgia team in a sense. And I think that they're going to beat Alabama, and I think they might run the table in the regular season.
Yeah, I would say it's so weird because like obviously I keep up with college football, but like I don't. It's kind of weird. Okay, I'll just be honest. Like, especially with Ohio State winning the national championship, I haven't been looking at the grand, like, scheme of everything like I used to with diving into Georgia's and Alabama's and stuff like that. I have with the show, but, like, I feel like the SEC and all of college football, it feels like the more we break these conferences down, the more we are like, man, this conference, there's like 3 or 4 teams that could win it. And then we're like, well, it's like this in this conference. Like, I feel like the SEC is kind of the same way. I feel like I'm not particularly high on Georgia. I think they're going to be okay, but I don't think they're going to be much different than what they were last year, which they were a good team last year. But I feel like there's other teams that have elevated. It's so weird because I feel like I'm not super high on Alabama either, but I know it's the game and stuff, but we were talking about it the other day. Like NCAA has Alabama ranked as the highest team. And it's like I don't understand why unless they're banking on the quarterback just being some godsend. And I would say I would put Texas in that same range. Like those 3 teams are kind of in a ball for me. If I had to go off the gut just by the way that he played last year and what they are bringing back and kind of how Billy Napier is on the hot seat. Now, with this being said, I don't want anybody to take this out of context, but I would say if DJ Lagway stays healthy all year, because he is dealing with injuries, man, I just feel like if you really go cut on the tape last year, like DJ Lagway, Florida was beating Georgia in that game until DJ Lagway got hurt. So with that being said, like I feel like the conference is such a cluster that I feel like it's going to come down to like that one player and who is that. And like I don't know of a single player in the SEC that can affect a football game like DJ Lagway besides maybe Lenora Sellers at South Carolina. And I'm really high on that team too. I think the thing that's kind of steering me away from Florida as much is because they have such a tough schedule. And don't give me the crap in the comments. Oh, everybody has a tough schedule in the SEC. No, they don't. No, they don't. Go look up Missouri's schedule. Missouri's schedule is not hard at all. And there's some other ones out there, but that's the one that comes to my mind. I feel like the teams that me and you have kind of been high on have had, like, it's almost like their schedule screws them. I'm really high on Oklahoma too, but it's like their schedule kind of screws them out of being in that top 5 for me. So with all that being said, like with those 3 or 4 teams kind of all being at the top, I mean, I guess I can just play devil's advocate with you and say Alabama. I mean, if I had to put trust in one, if you like, I love DJ Lagway, and in some crazy fashion of a year, yeah, they probably would be number 1 to me, but he's already suffered 2 injuries in like 10 months. He was in a walking boot for like half of spring practice or half of the start of fall camp already. So like, I don't trust that enough. And with that style of quarterback, he has to be mobile. It's not like it's like, oh man, he messed up his leg, but he's still a crazy pocket passer. Alabama, since the playoffs have started, they have not missed the playoffs 2 years in a row. Now, that was under Nick Saban, but what's his name, Mason? Dude, Kalen DeBoer? Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Kalen DeBoer, like, they're still recruiting at a super high level. Like, I wouldn't say, like, when I see them being the highest ranked in the game and, like, all that, like, I didn't think they were that good, but ESPN obviously knows something that we don't know. I know they're returning a lot on defense. They have some receivers that are coming up, and I don't know if they really recruited too many, but they're having receivers that are coming up. And I feel like Kalen DeBoer is really feeling that. I wouldn't say that he's some great football coach, but I think he's good enough with the talent that he's going to have. He feels it. I know we might not hear it, but you can't tell me him going – he went 9-4 last year, didn't he? Because they lost the bowl game. Yeah, them going 9-4. You can't tell me he wakes up every day and just people greet him on his way to work.
Well, and I have Alabama finishing second, so I think they make it to Atlanta. The fact of the matter is, last year Jalen Milroe hindered that football
1,000%.
Now, I don't think it's a sense that he was a bad quarterback, but I don't think that he was a quarterback for Kalen DeBoer's system. He threw a lot of bad passes. Yeah. He threw a lot of risky passes. His legs were amazing, but they didn't really have a great run game last year outside of Jalen Milroe. Like, they had games where their running backs had decent games, but they didn't have a consistent run game. And then in that Vanderbilt game, their defense was atrocious. In that Oklahoma game, Jalen Milroe turned the ball over multiple times. They just, at times, he just did not look like a good quarterback. And I think the trio, they haven't named the starter yet. Everyone's assuming it's going to be Ty Simpson, but they have him, they have Ty Simpson, they have Austin Mack, and the other guy's slipping my mind, but he's a freshman, and I've heard a lot of great things about him. And
it didn't Austin Mack come with Kalen DeBoer I think he came from Washington, I think.
I couldn't tell you that, but I do think it's a team that's going to improve. Like you said, they're returning quite a bit of pieces on their defense, and with a quarterback that's going to fit DeBoer's system a little better, I think you won't see the peaks and valleys of a system with Jalen
And another
Milroe.
thing,
I think you'll just see more of a consistent type of offense, and I think it'll bode
well. Another thing too that a lot of people don't know, Kalen DeBoer got a new offensive coordinator this offseason. And it was the offensive coordinator that he had in Washington. And you can say whatever you want to. Oh, they were in the Pac-12. They were this. They were that. They didn't have to play anybody. Like, Washington was consistent when Kalen DeBoer was there. And their offense was always humming. I mean, they took Michael Penix Jr., which was at Indiana, which was a decent quarterback. He tore like both ACLs. He pretty much should have been done. They took him and turned him into – I think he was a Heisman finalist that year.
Yeah, and a first-round draft pick.
Exactly. So I feel like if they have a competent quarterback, they are going to have enough talent around him. The offensive line is going to be pretty decent. That tackle that they have, dude's skipping my mind again. I feel bad because
Cam Robinson, I think is his name.
No, it's what is his name? Anyways, I think he's gonna be he's gonna be a lottery pick. He's gonna be like a top 10 pick in the year that he comes out. I mean, the dude's an absolute freak show. So I feel like that helps. I feel like they have enough on that team that's came back, and now it's officially like a Kalen DeBoer team. So some of the players that are there were recruited by Nick Saban, but I feel like last year a lot of those players were in shock. You lost 3 players just to Ohio State that were, Caleb Downs and Julian Sayin, and our center came from Alabama. A lot of the players that didn't leave that stayed there were kind of in shell shock. You just lost the greatest college football coach of all time, and you were committed to him, thinking in your mind, like, oh, if we don't win a national championship this year, we're definitely going to win one in years to come. And it's like, then Kalen DeBoer comes in, but you kind of trust him, but you kind of don't. And then you had those crash out episodes between the safeties and the corners and the defense, like all those things that were happening. I just feel like the team wasn't. It's kind of like when you get a new dog that you rescued, and like he wants to trust you, and he comes home with you, and he eats the food, and he drinks the water, but he just don't let you pet him yet. That's what it felt like to me. Like the team wasn't completely bought in on Kalen DeBoer in the system, but I feel like now that he's been there for a whole offseason, a whole year, they've went through the valleys and the peaks with him. I feel like it's going to be a lot better team than what it was last year.
I agree. Who do you have finishing second?
Man, I would say I got to go with South Carolina. I just
South Carolina second.
Yeah, I just don't really. I like Georgia, but I feel like dadgummit, what's the quarterback's name? He's skipping my mind.
For Georgia?
Yeah.
Gunnar Stockton.
Yeah, Gunnar Stockton. I feel like he gives me the Jake Fromm vibes. And I feel like Kirby's kind of going back into like the old Georgia, if that makes sense to me. The way that it feels to me, back when they were recruiting at a high level, but they didn't have those 2 and 3 deep guys where like, hey, we have a 400-pound nose tackle that's 6'8", but we can rotate him because the guy behind him is a 5-star. It's like I don't feel like Georgia has that as much. I don't think anybody in the country has that as much. But I just don't feel like they're going to be able to do it. And I have a lot of trust in South Carolina this year. They're returning a lot. They have Lenore Sellers, obviously. They have the crazy defensive end that went absolutely nuclear last year. I think he ended up winning Freshman of the Year, didn't he? Over Jeremiah Smith? Yeah, he won Freshman of the Year. And then what's the receiver's name? That's an absolute freak show, has like 99 speed overall and like all these things, but like he hasn't really done anything.
Nick Harbor.
Yeah, Nick, like I just feel like that dude's got to eventually get it clicking. They're returning enough on the offensive side and the defensive side. I feel like in the SEC, I would say they're kind of middle of the pack on strength of schedule. They don't have the hardest schedule, but they don't have the easiest schedule. I feel like a lot of games that they have are home games, or they're going to an atmosphere that might not be something like ridiculous, if that makes sense. I really like Shane Beamer. I feel like South Carolina is like the sleeping giant, and they got a little taste of like extra success last year, and I feel like they're just going to build on it. I feel like Lenore Sellers has a great opportunity to win the Heisman, and I have more trust in that team than I do the Florida team, if that makes sense. Like, I do like Florida a lot, but I feel like Shane Beamer and the way that they have their defense constructed and the way that they have their offense and what they're returning, and Lenore Sellers, we got more of – he went crazy as a freshman last year, and he hasn't had too many injury problems, knock on wood, but, like, I feel like that stadium is going to help them in a lot of games that you would be like, dang, if that was an away game, I could see them losing it. But with that home crowd and the way that they get up and the way Shane Beamer gets those teams prepared for big games, I feel like they could finish second and end up being in Atlanta.
Yeah, and I think their ceiling they could maybe get there. I think they do play a pretty tough stretch where they play Alabama, Ole Miss, and LSU like all in a row.
But is that a tough stretch?
Yeah, I mean those are all quality teams.
Yeah.
That LSU game they got to go on the road, and I think they get Alabama and Ole Miss at home. I think that's a stretch they could get them. They also got to play Oklahoma. They got to play Clemson still, which isn't a conference game, but they have a lot of games that could trip them up.
Yeah, and I think I definitely do think they could lose one or two. I don't think they're going to go undefeated. I just feel like out of the teams that could finish in the top 5, I have more trust in them and their system than I do in any of the other ones.
Right. Okay. At 3, I have Texas. I think Sark and them kind of have another year where they probably wind up making the playoff. They're going to be a good team. I think they have more losable games on their schedule this year. They got to play Oklahoma, who got a lot better. I'm not saying they'll lose that game, but that's a game that I could see them losing. They got to play Georgia, of course, and they got to go on the road. They got to play Texas A&M. So it's kind of a thing of, they also have to play Florida in the swamp early. So it's kind of a thing of, I think Texas is a good team, but it's kind of my thing with Florida, who I've had finishing 4th, is I think Texas and Florida both have a lot of games that are just going to be like tough to see them come out of over and over and over again. And I think they kind of slip behind. And I don't think they're going to slip behind to be 9-3. But I think they're going to be like 10-2, with both losses coming in conference. I do have them winning that Ohio State game.
I figured.
But it's not because I love Texas. I just, I don't know. I'm just trying to poke the bear a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not just saying this as an Ohio State fan. I'm not high on Texas at all. I don't think. I mean, so. And here's what I'm going to say. I feel like, man, and I'm going to go over these teams. I feel like now, since we've got kind of our 2 or 3 out of the way, a lot of ours are going to be the same. I'm not going to go over Georgia because you just went over Georgia, and I have them as my 3rd team. You know what I mean? So I would say I have Alabama at 1, South Carolina at 2, Georgia at 3, Florida at 4, and Texas at 5. I'm going to talk about Texas, even though they're my 15, because you're kind of already on them. Here's my whole thing. Are they returning some? 1,000%. They have a great secondary, but their secondary showed problems when they played the Georgia team. At the same time, though, they are losing a lot. They just put the most amount of players in school history into the draft. So all these people, they're like, oh, Texas is returning a lot. No, they're not. Arch Manning, do you really know if Arch Manning's good? No. DJ Lagway played, 6 games last year, 7 games? You know more about DJ Lagway than we know about Arch Manning, but everybody's kind of just assuming that he's going to win the Heisman and be some great quarterback. He didn't play that well in the games that he played in last year. He played okay in 1, but that was against, New Mexico State Penitentiary. So it's like, how good is he for 1? And for 2, they really had an overhaul on the offensive line. They're returning some pieces, but they also are losing a lot. I just heard from another podcast that I listened to. I guess if we're going to be professional, Mason, I guess you could call it. I heard from a source. I heard from a source that I have that they were having an offensive line battle. I think at a the right tackle position. And one of the guys that was really battling for that spot went down with a season-ending injury. He's out. He won't be playing. And I know that's like, oh, well, he's just playing for a spot. It's like, yeah, but look at Ohio State last year. We ended up starting our 7th or 8th offensive lineman in that game. Now we're talking about conference, but I'm not as high on Texas as a lot of people just because of that reason. I know they're returning a lot on defense. They have great linebackers and they have a great defensive ends. But Texas hit the defensive tackle position very, very hard this year, which tells me the people that they had in that room, they didn't trust. And when it
Right.
comes to a
Well, and they
defensive,
hit that last year pretty hard.
yeah, when it comes to a defensive line too, you have to have communication skills. You have to know that person that you're lined up beside inside and out. So when y'all do flips and switches and pulls and pushes and all these things, like you have to know what you're doing. I'm not saying they're going to be a horrible team. I could see them finishing 9-3, losing 2 conference games and losing that one in the shoe to start off the season.
Well, I think they return enough on offense with their running backs. They're returning C.J. Baxter, who got injured last year. I do think Arch is going to be a good quarterback. I don't think I'm not going to project him as a college Hall of Famer. They're returning some receivers, and like you said, they're returning defensive pieces. But I don't think it's necessarily a thing of they didn't trust their interior D line. I just think that's a position that they hit last year in the portal, so they're going to have to do it over and over and over again until they get some young guys developed. And so far, Sark has proven to me that he can go and grab those defensive line guys, and they fit right in and play real good. That's why I have them finishing third.
Makes sense.
Who do you have finishing fourth?
So my top 2 were Georgia. South Carolina would be my 1 and 2. My third spot. I would say it would have to be Florida. I like Florida a lot. Kind of like what I talked about earlier, and I feel comfortable enough saying that I think DJ Lagway is gonna stay healthy enough to keep them in that third spot. Because I feel like the SEC isn't what it used to be, to where your third spot had to go, 10-1 to be in the third ranking in the conference. I mean, I think the third ranking in the conference last year was like 9-3. So it's like, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, they were 10-2. It was Tennessee. Tennessee finished third.
Yeah, so it's 10-2, and like this year, I feel like the conference is even tighter, and a lot of these big teams are either playing big opponents at at an away game. So I feel like Florida, to finish third in the SEC, I feel like you have to go around 9-3, and I feel like DJ Lagway is gonna stay healthy enough to get them to 9-3. I feel like Billy Napier. I don't feel like he's coaching on a hot seat, but I feel like this is going to be a big season for him. And I feel like, I mean, if people don't remember, before DJ Lagway came, like DJ Lagway committing saved Billy Napier his job. I mean, he was getting ready to be out of the door. They were having effort issues. You've seen them in bowl games to where their defensive line was like walking to go tackle somebody on a sweep route or a sweep run. He was really coaching for his job, and then DJ Lagway came in, so people were like, oh, just give him time. DJ Lagway's coming. Like, he'll be fine. I wouldn't say that he's on the hot seat, but I feel like he's kind of feeling the pressure, kind of like Steve Sarkisian was, because Steve Sarkisian went to the semifinals in the last 2 years and have lost the games. So I feel like those coaches, they're both dealing with pressure, but they're not dealing with a hot seat, if that makes sense. I really like their defense. I feel like they had moments last year, even when DJ Lagway's, I think he's like a generational quarterback, but at the end of the day, you have to have a good team to surround him to win big games. I feel like them being competitive against Georgia halfway, through the game, I feel like that doesn't just show what DJ Lagway can do. It shows what the team can do. They're returning a lot because they weren't some great team last year. So a lot of your juniors didn't go to the draft. I know they lost some pieces, but it's not like they're having to do a complete overhaul. They brought in pieces on the portal that really helped them, but not an overhaul type portal like your Florida State had to do last year. I really like their receivers. They're not big name receivers, but I feel like they're competent enough receivers to make it to where DJ Lagway can just be DJ Lagway, and they're going to catch the ball for him. I don't mind their running backs. I feel like they have a good system down there with a 2 running back system. I've heard that they have a younger running back that's an absolute freak show that could end up being one of the best running backs in the conference if they don't split the carries too much. But I think that's going to kind of be seen, weeks 3, 4, and 5, because they're going to kind of run that running back committee type thing to start off the season, like everybody's going to have to do, because the season is longer than it used to be, especially if you have playoff hopes and playoff expectations.
And we're kind of getting to the point here where it's going to be like, so 4 through 9 in the SEC could be anyone.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is LSU, South Carolina, Alabama, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss last year all finished with like pretty much the same record. They all beat each other pretty much. And we're going to be kind of in that range where it's going to be 9-3, 8-4 is going to be the difference. Or you might even be 10-2 with 2 conference losses and be in this range. So who I have finishing 4th, I do have Ole Miss actually finishing 4th, just because they catch a lot of home games. I don't think that they could be a fringe playoff team, but I think Austin Simmons, they got some running backs in the portal. They're returning some receivers that killed Arkansas last year. They've really spent a lot of money and resources and time with their coaches on their defense. I don't think that they go unscathed. I don't think that they're necessarily going to be a better team than last year. I just think they have a better schedule. They catch South Carolina at home. They catch Florida at home. And they catch LSU at home. All 3 games. They didn't lose all 3 of those games. They beat South Carolina last year, but they lost to LSU on the road. And they got kind of shit the bed last year on the road against Florida and LSU for that fact. I don't think they lose to a Kentucky, but I don't think they beat Georgia either. So I think this is a team that's going to wind up winning some games and being surprising. But I think it's off the strength of, I trust Lane Kiffin a lot. I think Lane Kiffin's an offensive mind. I think he's improving as just an all-around coach. And I really think Austin Simmons is going to have to prove to me that he's not good, because I haven't seen a bad quarterback at Ole Miss since before Lane Kiffin, in between Lane Kiffin and Hugh Freeze. And even that quarterback wound up being pretty all right. Not John Rice Plumlee, but Matt Corral. So I think it's a team that's going to wind up winning a lot of games, and they're going to wind up being kind of on the fringe again of the playoff. I like Ole Miss a lot this year, really. I do think that they're going to lose week 3. Just kidding. Probably not. They're probably going to beat us in the most heartbreaking fashion ever. But I do think that they finished 4th, and you could change this with anyone through basically 9, pretty much. Who do you kind of have in that same area? It's going to be kind of just a...
Yeah, I would say I would say it's kind of around the same way for me. I would say if I had to go in order, it would probably be... So I gave my 1 through 5, but even like 4 and 5 can be switched out. You know what I mean? For 9. I mean, kind of like it was last year. Like, you don't really know. I would say, Ole Miss would probably be at like 6. Then, like, you have Ole Miss, you have Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is going to be really good with Mike Elko and Reed coming back. And I feel like they kind of got their defense figured out last year towards the end of the season. I feel like they're really going to make a big jump. A team that I don't feel comfortable enough putting in my top 5, but I would absolutely love to. It's so hard because their schedule is just so brutal. Dude, I really like Oklahoma a lot. I don't know why. It's something about them. They brought in that offensive coordinator from Western Kentucky, Washington State. Washington State is known for having crazy offense. They brought in the quarterback, which is very much Cam Ward-esque. I'm not saying he's anywhere close, but their stat lines at Washington State were very similar in John Mateer. So that's the offensive coordinator and the quarterback came from the same place, so they know each other. And from what I've heard, Brent Venables is kind of over the bullcrap, and he's taking over the defense. He's calling the defensive plays, and I feel like he only does that because he really has trust in that offensive coordinator. They're returning a lot on the defensive side of the ball. They're returning a lot on the offensive side of the ball, and they got a quarterback upgrade. I think the only reason I have them so low is because their schedule does not help them out a lot. So I have Oklahoma finishing up there. LSU, I feel like, is going to finish in that. They're not going to be at the bottom of the conference, but they're not going to be at the top of the conference. I like Tennessee too. I could see Tennessee going 9-3, 10-2, but I could also see them going 7-5. It really depends on that quarterback that they brought in from UCLA. I feel like Josh Heupel has always taken a quarterback that nobody else thought could do anything, like Joe Milton, that came from Memphis or Michigan, and that nobody thought he could do anything. He just had a cannon arm, and they ended up being a good team. I feel like they're returning enough on defense to be a stable team in the SEC. And like they really didn't rely on their quarterback last year. Uyongo was not a good quarterback. He had all the talent in the world, but he wasn't a good quarterback, and they still went to the playoffs. And I would say around that range, yeah, you have your Ole Misses, your Texas A&Ms, your Tennessees, your Oklahomas, but then that's the middle tier. But then you go into the bottom tier, and I feel like anybody in the middle tier could end up in the top tier by like a few bounces of the ball or the few ways that the whistle blows at the end of each quarter. But then I feel like there's too much of a gap between the bottom tier and the middle tier, if that makes sense.
Well, and the way I have it, so after 4, I have Florida at 5. I have LSU, or I have South Carolina at 6, LSU at 7, A&M at 8, Auburn at 9, Oklahoma at 10, and then I would say, like right there is about your gap. I think every team after this is going to be kind of like an up and down season, 7-5, 6-6.
Yeah.
I have Arkansas at 11, Tennessee at 12, Missouri at 13, Vandy at 14, Mississippi State at 15, and Kentucky at 16. And so what I'm going to kind of lay out here is Texas A&M has to play LSU, has to play Auburn, they have to play Texas, they have to play Arkansas, they have to play, they have a lot of games right there with teams that I think are right with them, which obviously it's a conference schedule. You're going to play teams in your conference. I just think a lot of these teams are going to beat each other. I think Ole Miss is going to beat LSU, but LSU is probably going to wind up beating A&M. Auburn beat A&M last year, but I think Auburn has a couple of tough road games they could wind up losing. I just think it's going to be one of those seasons, again, where it's going to be kind of tough to kind of project anywhere from like 4 to 10. And I could even see a team surprising, which this is going to be my homerism, but like in a fantasy world, Arkansas gets a lot of home games this year. They do have to go on the road at Texas, but they get LSU on the road, which is probably going to be a loss too. That's 2 losses. We got to go to Ole Miss, which is a tough game, but we get Auburn at home. We get Missouri at home. We get Texas A&M. So like we have a lot of these winnable conference games at home that aren't the top of the conference like they were last year. And so like a team like Arkansas, regardless of the head nods and everyone hating and acting like we're the littlest of brothers, Arkansas could surprise some teams and win some games and find themselves at an 8 and be like, whoa, they finished 8 and they went 7-5 or 8-4. I just think it's a season where a team could be surprising. As far as teams that I think are going to be disappointing, I think Tennessee is going to be super disappointing this year. It's a team that just went to the playoff, and I know they got beat like a drum when they made it there. But they won a lot of big games last year. They beat Alabama. They went on the road and beat Oklahoma. They basically beat everyone except Georgia and Arkansas was their 2 conference losses. I just think it's going to be something where like they're going to lose to Florida. I don't think that they stand a chance in that game.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to beat Alabama again. I don't think they're going to beat Georgia. I think they could lose to Arkansas early in the season at home. I just think it's going to be a really disappointing year. Josh Heupel normally has a pretty good offense, but I think losing your quarterback in, what was that, April?
Yeah, it was late.
Something like that. And then you brought in a guy that kind of struggled last year in the Sun Belt. I just don't think that bodes well for Tennessee. That's my most disappointing team in the conference this year. And my second most disappointing team, I'm going to go on this little tirade real quick. I think Vanderbilt's going to suck. I'm just going, whoa, surprising. The worst team in the SEC the last 50 years is going to suck again. I don't think Diego Pavia has an ounce of like realistic expectations. And I know that he's not going to say, oh, yeah, we're going to suck. But like watching that, if you haven't watched it, they have this SEC kind of season in review thing on Netflix where they go into games, like the big upsets and stuff. Just the way he carries himself, the way they talk about themselves, it's like you are the little brother in your own state. Like you've never been better than Tennessee. You've never been competitive. And I think Diego Pavia is a loudmouth idiot. And I respect him. I will say this. I respect him. I think he's a fun watch. He plays the game in a very fun way. And I think he's a decent quarterback. Vanderbilt sucks, though, regardless of whatever. Vanderbilt is Vanderbilt. And I think they return to that. I do think they make a bowl game maybe, but I think it's going to be on the brink. It's going to be 5-7, maybe 5-7. They might get into that 6-6, but you're not going to Bryant-Denny and beating Alabama again. So where's your other win?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I would say my surprising team that I'm like, when I look at their schedule and I look at what they're returning and what they brought in, I really like Auburn to be that surprising team for me. I feel like their receivers are second, maybe kind of dabbling in that first spot in the SEC. I really like their quarterback they brought in, Miller Moss. I think it was Jackson Arnold. Okay. I really like Jackson Arnold. I feel like he got a bad rap at Oklahoma. I feel like it was kind of weird because Dylan Gabriel, I'm not saying he got a bad rap. Like, he was not good last year. It's more like he kind of got sprung into a position and everybody around him thought that he was going to be some great quarterback, and he got put in the spotlight too early. Personally, I think he was a little immature for what they needed him to be. He was great in the Elite 11. I just felt like Dylan Gabriel kind of wanted to leave, but kind of wanted to get pushed, or kind of wanted to leave and kind of got pushed out at the same time. I just don't feel like he was ready for the spotlight. And I feel like him going to Auburn is really going to help, especially don't they? Yeah, Hugh Freeze is there, right? I'm not tripping. Yeah, I like Hugh Freeze. He's had Auburn in a top 15 recruiting class in the last 3 years since he's been there. He took over a complete dumpster fire, and I feel like last year they were kind of underwhelming, but you could see potential because you knew they were a young team. The team that I think is going to not live up to expectations, and I'm just saying this because, what's the expectations for Kentucky? Very low. What's the expectations for Mississippi State? Very low. Sorry, but what's the expectations for Arkansas when you talk to a logical Arkansas fan? I expect, 6-6. So it's do I think they're going to finish worse than 6-6? 1,000%. But I feel like the expectations in Vanderbilt, since what they did last year, I feel like their expectations are so much higher in this delusional world than what Arkansas fans' expectations are. I feel like Vanderbilt's fans think that they're going to be able to go beat Alabama and think that they're going to be able to go beat these big teams and give Tennessee a run for their money again. And it's no, I don't. I think their expectations are so much higher than Arkansas's fans. That's why I have them finishing way below what them as a program and them as a fan base have them finishing.
Well, and I've seen some people talking about Kentucky in a way that's whenever Stoops has his back against the wall, they win 8 games or they win 10 games.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's a realistic world that Kentucky wins 6 games. I just don't see it.
No.
I think this might be Stoops' last year in Lexington. So it's not that I think that their expectations are that good. I think that they're expected to be bad. But I think they're going to be worse. I mean, they brought in Zach Calzada, who failed at 2 different SEC schools. I think that's going to be a really bad football team. And as far as Vanderbilt and Tennessee, if Vanderbilt doesn't beat Tennessee this year, they might never beat Tennessee. This is going to be the worst Tennessee team probably of the 2020s. It definitely the worst one we've seen since Josh Heupel's been there. Maybe besides his first year. I don't see a world that if Vanderbilt doesn't beat Tennessee this year that they ever beat them. I just don't see it happening. But as far as like teams that are going to be kind of disappointing, I feel like Auburn might be disappointing. Like I know you just talked about them being good, but Hugh Freeze has been in the media talking about how he's had to tell his defense to go easy on Jackson Arnold to keep his confidence up, and I don't think that bodes well because they had a good defense last year. They had a good run game last year. They had all those receivers last year. Now they were younger, the receivers were, and they did lose some stuff on their run game coming into this year. But I just think if you're having to protect Jackson Arnold's confidence in July and August, like what if they play Michigan and it's a 17-7 loss? Or not, they don't play Michigan. They play Baylor. I was thinking of Oklahoma, Jackson Arnold. What if they play Baylor and they lose like 17-7 or like 20-13? You know, like a low scoring. They never got anything really going. Like,
yeah.
Do you think Jackson Arnold can recover from that after everything he went through last year with your coach talking about your confidence in the media?
Yeah, I feel like the reason because like if you know college football, Hugh Freeze has been around forever. He's been around quarterbacks. He knows what to do and how to, be around them and like what to do to this quarterback that worked for this quarterback but didn't work for this one. And, all these things. He's been around college football enough. I feel like he knew Jackson Arnold coming in was beat down. He was a broken horse. He needed to build his confidence up. I feel like a lot of programs do that, especially if your defense is a halfway decent defense. Like, hey, man, like, Jackson Arnold's kind of struggling right now. He does not need to even throw one interception in practice. So let's take it easy on him. Let's build his confidence up. I mean, I think you could be right too. Me hearing that, it doesn't help me think that like, oh, they're going to be way better. But like playing devil's advocate with that situation, like I could see it at a certain point. I know Ohio State, and I hate bringing up Ohio State. It's just that's who I follow on a week in and week out basis. Like they kind of were doing the same thing for a little bit with Julian Sand because he was kind of gun shy. He didn't like, dealing with a lot of stuff because he is new. Like a lot of people don't remember, Jackson Arnold, he played for Tennessee last year. He got benched a couple of times. He got hurt a couple of times. Like they really took a lot of shit out on that kid when the backup quarterback would come in and he wasn't really any better, obviously, because Oklahoma went out and got a transfer. So I think they put a lot of pressure on him and almost beat him down to a ton of bricks. And now Hugh Freeze is having to kind of build him up. Well, you can't build him up if every day you start putting bricks together and somebody comes through with a sledgehammer and knocks it back down again.
I understand that, and I definitely don't think the Oklahoma situation was good because they also fired their offensive coordinator. So obviously the whole situation was not good for Jackson Arnold. But I don't like Hugh Freeze going into the media and saying that.
No.
Like, obviously, you're going to do whatever you want at practice. Last year, Taylon Greens, Bobby Petrino didn't dump everything on him.
Yeah.
Either. So it's not like this is an uncommon thing. But Bobby Petrino also wasn't, or Sam Pittman, Bobby Petrino wasn't in the media talking about, oh, well, we haven't been able to give him everything because he doesn't know everything yet.
Yeah.
The only other coach I've ever heard talk about him limiting his quarterback to the media was, Chad Morris. We're talking about how he's only installed 25% of the offense. So that instills nothing but fear in me for Jackson Arnold. And I've been a big Auburn, like, talking about how I think Auburn's going to improve, how Auburn's had a lot of good cycles. Hugh Freeze is a good coach. But the way that man talks in the media, like, turns me away from, like, wanting to predict good things for Auburn almost,
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And we're in that scenario right now, especially because we talk about it all the time. There are so many first-year quarterbacks or quarterbacks that didn't get a full season last year or freshman quarterbacks that, like, were very lackluster last year, but you kind of remember in your mind, like, oh, they're freshmen. They're going to build on last year. There are so many. There's what you have Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. We just talked about him last week. His name's skipping my mind. Clemson's quarterback.
Klubnik.
Yeah, so you have Club Nick at Clemson, and you have Drew Aller at Penn State, and then you have the Arizona State's quarterback and Illinois' quarterback. Those are like the 5 quarterbacks that are returning. Everybody else, besides, like, I'm sure there's teams out there that you can comment, but like I'm talking about like big time programs. Like Rocco Beck is returning. He's a good quarterback. But like I'm talking about the big time programs that can actually compete for a national championship or compete for the playoffs. Like those, that's it. Your Ohio States, your Georgias, your Alabamas, your all these teams, even Notre Dame, all these other teams are not returning quarterbacks, or they're bringing in a transfer, or it's a first-year starter that's a redshirt sophomore. So, like, I feel like so much stuff is open that, like, it's going to be hard for us to predict it. And I could be really high on Alabama, and Kalen DeBoer could come out and say, "Hey, we're starting the freshman." Oh, that ain't good because I don't think freshmen are good enough to start in college football at big time programs. So like we're in that kind of we got 2 weeks until college football's here. And like this is when these teams, I mean, half the teams haven't even really admitted who their starting quarterback is, like your Alabamas, your Ohio States, your teams that are having these real deal quarterback battles. You don't know who it's going to be. Well, that could either make you a 13-0 team, or it could make you a 9-4 team, and you're like, dang, it's really dependent on the quarterback because there's not too many teams in the last 15 years that won a national championship or even was a great team that you're like, they just kind of had lackluster quarterback play.
I can think of one team.
Do what?
I said I can think of one team that didn't have good quarterback play.
Yeah,
or great quarterback.
Yeah, you better watch your mouth. Who is it?
Michigan.
Okay, yeah.
They didn't. I mean, I still don't think JJ McCarthy is that good of a quarterback, but
I don't think he was either. But like, you don't typically see that style of offense win a national championship. I just think their defense was so suffocating that like they did it.
Oh, and Blake Corum was like the greatest midget I've ever seen play football.
Yeah, and I think J.J. McCarthy did make enough NFL throws for what they needed him to be. It's just his numbers were so lackluster. I mean, I hate the NFL. I watch it for fantasy. That's about it, and to keep up with Ohio State players. But like, they drafted J.J. McCarthy in like the top 15 pick. So like, obviously they seen something. But you're right. Like, they didn't have quote unquote great quarterback play.
But that's all I got. I'd say we covered it pretty decently. We didn't go into every team. We went into.
And it's going to be, it's going to be it's going to be hard because, especially over the next 2 weeks, like we have like 16 teams. And if you've been with us for a while or you scroll back through our videos, when me and Mason did the college breakdowns for the Big Ten and the SEC, you're talking about like 2-hour episodes. So like if we did that today, like nobody cares about Kentucky and like what they're going to finish in the conference. We want to give y'all something to like look forward to because we're 2 weeks away. After this episode, you watch it, you're going to have one more episode. And that's going to be the Big Ten episode, the best conference in college football. And then we're going to go into week 0. And that's when we're going to start. And then week 1. And before you know it, we're going to be going into playoffs. And, well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready. As much as I like doing these prediction shows, I'm also ready to be able to watch the game and come on here and give you my full-blown opinion, and you have watched the same game. Or you might not have watched that game, but you want to know what Auburn did against Kentucky or what Auburn did against Vanderbilt or, whatever team they played that week that wasn't a primetime game. That's what I'm ready for.
And, I'm definitely tired of the hypotheticals. I'm tired of predicting. Yeah. I'm tired of looking ahead. I'm ready for it to be here. We got a lot of good games coming in, or we got one good game coming in week 0, and then we got a whole slew of good games coming after that. We're about to be in the thick of it. So make sure you subscribe.
Yep.
Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on TikTok. We do have a Twitter. I don't really post on it super much, but if y'all start following us, we'll start interacting on that.
Did we get any comments, Mason, or no?
Oh, yeah, we got a bunch of comments.
Are
Dylan
they worth
Spivey said,
are they worth reading, or are they like just trolling?
we got a few. Aaron Hogue says the Big Ten is the little brother of the SEC. He also said Vanderbilt won as many games as Arkansas last year. Dylan Spivey said LSU 2019 is the greatest college football team ever.
Yeah,
that's about it.
I got you. I mean, yeah, it's all opinions. So I'm not going to speak on it too much. I'm going to let the Big Ten do what the Big Ten does.
I think as far as Vanderbilt winning the same amount of games as Arkansas, Vanderbilt got to play Kentucky, and Vanderbilt, they lost to Georgia State. So Arkansas would have beat Vanderbilt by 40 last year. I'm just letting you know that now. And if we play them, and we don't get Ole Miss's schedule where we get to play Vanderbilt and Kentucky at home and lose to Kentucky at home. We don't get to do all that. So, whatever. Arkansas just gets the shaft every year. That's fine. It's Arkansas versus the world. And whenever we're 8-4 at the end of the year and we won against Ole Miss in week 3, I'm going to be the biggest asshole that's walking planet Earth. So I'm just going to let everyone know that now, especially Aaron Hogue.
I'm just, man, honestly, Mason, like, I am so ready. I feel like we're at that point we're 2 weeks away or like a week away, kind of. I feel like we're at that point. You know how like you're looking forward to Christmas, like especially when you're a little kid, and I'm a big Christmas time fan. As soon as Thanksgiving over, you're looking forward to Christmas. You're listening to all the Christmas music. You put your Christmas tree up early, and the stockings and the little fake snow and like all this.
You're wearing your Christmas jammies and watching Elf.
All of it, and like at the beginning of December, that's what you're doing, and then like December 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, that week leading up to Christmas, you're just like, holy shit, man. Like, is it going to hurry up and get here, or are we just in this limp mode where I have to hear Jingle Bells 45 times on the radio and listen to people talk about the Christmas spirit? It's like, I want it to be here. I'm tired of all the shenanigans and the building up and all that. Like, I'm just ready for season to be here.
Me too. But, guys, we appreciate it a lot. Next week's the Big Ten. We're probably going to piss Justin off, so that'll be fun. It'll be good. Maybe we'll get him fired up for the first time. Maybe he'll be yelling at the camera like me.
I might end up being.
Tune in, and you might see. Justin blow a head gasket because we're going to troll him next week. That's our promise. If we can get as many people as possible in here, we will try to get on Justin's nerves next week.
Oh, I'll get fired up. Y'all be careful.
Y'all have a good week. We'll talk to y'all next week.